Hey everybody, welcome back to the Build an Aquarium Workshop channel. I am Jeff, I am your host here, and as always, we are talking about tropical fish. Okay, today's episode is, you can get it, let's talk about, this is our Tanganyika cichlid tank, but let's talk about water chemistry for your African cichlids. Alright, so if you are going to keep, this is especially for those who are thinking of getting into the hobby, okay, and maybe you're deciding, you're going to the fish store and you're going, hey, I see these fish I really like. Well, if they're from Lake Malawi, Lake Victoria, or Lake Tanganyika, then they are African cichlids. You'll also hear them being called Old World cichlids, from the Old World, not the New World. America is the New World. That's the Old World on the opposite side of the hemisphere. You'll also hear them called Rift Lake cichlids, right? They're in these lakes that are a huge rift. You know, if you're in America, you know the San Andreas Fault. Well, there's a big fault through Africa, and eventually, millions and millions of years from now, these fish are going to have to become saltwater or something like that. Okay, all right. Well, enough of that. So, water chemistry. Don't want to get you a closer view of what you're going to need. Not much. Okay, and I want to give you a tip. For those of you who are starting out, you're watching my channel, and you're like, hey, I want to get into the hobby. Your channel is supposed to be a channel for low budget, layman's terms, easy to understand, that kind of thing. Okay, all of that is true. I'm going to make it very, very easy. What do you really need for this? Now, of course, the equipment, you're going to need the aquarium, you're going to need the filter, you're going to need the heater. Yes, you're going to need all that. Okay. But more specifically, what are you going to need so that these fish can thrive rather than just survive, okay? And there is a difference between the lakes. We're going to talk about that too today. But I do want to, before we talk about that, I want to give you a tip. And a tip here would be, if you're going to get into the hobby and you're like, oh, we're back at the fish store and you see these fish like this and you go, I want these fish. That's what me. Don't let the salesperson talk you out of, what you want. Okay, because here's a simple matter of fact. Okay, yes, a lot of times they go to the store and they'll go, you've never had fish before. What you really want is a goldfish, or a betta. Start out with that, something easy, and then graduate your way up. But that isn't really, that's just like telling somebody, get a moped before you get a motorcycle. You don't need to. There's a lot of people who start their hobby and they're ahead of the game. They have a knack for it, and that's great. So don't let anybody tell you got to start with these fish. You'll be disappointed. You'll be spending all this money on that betta cube I have upstairs. You could spend an easy $75 to $100, and you'll be like, I'm not happy. I wanted a saltwater tank, or I wanted a, whatever. And you're not going to be happy. And that's just another exit to leaving the hobby. You didn't get what you wanted. All right, so let's get what you want. So don't let anybody talk you out of that, out of what you want, because it doesn't matter, to be honest with you. Fresh water, salt water, cold water, warm water, okay, or tropical. It's all easy. Okay, I'm going to tell you that right now. It's all easy. Not because I'm doing this for a long time, but there isn't much difference. In another video, I'm going to break it all down for you and just go, what is the difference between this tank and this saltwater tank over here? What are the big differences? There's some money, of course. There's always money involved, Okay, let's talk about water chemistry. What are we going to need? Let's look at these products. There's two products that you're going to need for a Malawi or a Victorian tank, Lake Victoria or Lake Tanganyika. You get fishes from those three lakes, you're going to need these two products, okay? Let's look at them. All right, here's our, for Lake Tanganyika, okay? You're going to say, well, gosh, they're so specific. Well, they are. Because there is a big difference between, I should say there is a difference between Lake Tanganyika and Lake Malawi. Now, you'll notice one says Tanganyika buffer, and the other says Cichlid Lake salt. How generic is that? And then you see a picture of this, which looks like a Malawi cichlid, which it is. Okay, the salt isn't specific. All right, so if you're gonna keep African cichlids, you're gonna need Cichlid Lake salt. Just like you need salt for a saltwater aquarium, you're gonna need this salt for your African cichlids. Two big things, talking about degrees of hardness or the amount of dissolved salt, so the amount of salt that's in this water, right? And this salt is a unique blend of formulated for the Rift Lake cichlids, okay? And then you have Tanganyika buffer, but you'll see Lake Malawi buffer as well. What's the difference? Tanganyika buffer will take your pH. Remember we talk about acids and bases, okay? In this case, it's a base, very alkaline, okay? Something that's a base is alkaline. So the alkalinity is high. And look what it says here, okay? 9 to 9.4. Wow, that's as high as it goes, folks, for any fish that you'll ever keep. Higher than this saltwater tank over here. Got to say hello to Nemo. Hello, Nemo. And those guys are at like 8 to 8.3. You're like, what? Yeah, these guys are 9 to 9.4. What about Malawi or Victoria? Lower. Those lakes are like 8 to 8.5. That's it. So that's the difference between why you would want to buy Malawi buffer, which would be good for Lake Malawi and Lake Victoria, or Tanganyika buffer. So that's the two products. These are about $8 to $10. I looked them up online. Usually, I would go to Petco or PetSmart. They usually carry them at the store, and you could get them for, they'll usually match their online price, which I believe was like $8. So let's just say between $16 and $20. That's everything you need. Now, what about testing your water? Do you need a test kit? Here we go. If you're gonna get it, you don't need this, but if you're gonna get it, get the high range pH test kit. Why? Because we're talking, the pH of this is high. So you notice how it had little African cichlids on it and a clownfish? Okay, so this is freshwater, saltwater, but we only need it, I'm using this for freshwater here for these cichlids, just to double check. We're gonna open this kit and we're gonna look at it, okay? Before we do that, let's take a look at the salt and the buffer, what that looks like. All right, so this is the Cichlid Lake Salt. So you can see you're going to need one of these spoons if you can to dose correctly. They don't come with them. Okay, so you might want to have this too, the stuff that you use in the kitchen. And you can see that's the salt, okay? It's the white powdery stuff, right? That's your cichlid salt. And then here, let's look at the Tanganyika buffer. It's kind of a lighter, crystally looking stuff. I don't know if you can really see it in this lighting, but, here we go, I'll pour it for you. And that's it. And are there other brands? There are other brands, okay? So you don't have to buy these brands. They're all about the same price, though, so you're not going to really save much. Whether you go with Kent products or Seachem or somebody else, that's pretty much what you're going to spend on them. They're all formulated. They all work. I wouldn't worry too much about that. All right, so let's look at the test kit. All right, now here you go. So real quick, this is Aquarium Pharmaceuticals test kit. I like this one because it does fresh and salt, right? If you've got a fresh and salt tank, why not take advantage of that? But before we mention these things, if you want to get master test kits, then you got Tetra. Here's Aquarium Farm again. Feel free to do so. You'll be able to test a whole variety of things, as you can see here. The typical ammonia, nitrite, nitrate. Usually basic pH, not necessarily high range pH unless it says it's got it. Maybe degrees of hardness. There's carbonate hardness right there. So not a bad idea. Or you could go to your fish store if you're on a budget. Go to your fish store. Usually they do some free testing on basics like pH and ammonia. Get them to test it. And sometimes there's a small fee if you want to do a bigger panel of testing. Okay, let's go back to this Aquarium Farm. And then we have a saltwater and a freshwater card. We don't need the saltwater card for now. We're just talking about freshwater African cichlids. So put that one aside. You get the test tube, right? You get the solution and you get the test tube. And then right here is the card. And, the thing I love about this, the instructions are right on the back. There you have it. You just look at this and it tells you, here we go, got it the right way. Step 1, okay, add 5 drops of solution. To the test tube. And make sure first though, you get the test tube, you fill up from your aquarium, you grab the water and you fill it up to this line. Okay, that's the first thing. And then go ahead and drop your 5 drops in there. Then cap it. Then you're gonna swirl it back and forth. You'll usually see that here. That's what this little step here is to take it after you add your 5 drops, and then you kind of go back and forth with it. You don't really have to shake it, just kind of to mix it. Then in X amount of time, it will tell you, usually a few minutes, and then, or it could be instant. Looks like this one's instant. And then you will look at this, and one of these colors is going to come out, right? Sometimes it could be in between. Got to get this the right way. Sorry, folks. And then here you go, and you look and you want it to be, what color do you want? If this is Tanganyika, You want it to be purple, right? You want it to be on the end there. You want it to be purple. That's 8.8. If it's a Malawi, then you're going to want it to be somewhere in this brown range, okay, or Lake Victoria. But Tanganyika, you want it on the higher end. Now, general ranges of experience, pH experience for Lake Victoria and Malawi, I would say 8 to 8.5 is just perfectly fine. It's for Tanganyika, though, you're going to want to definitely buffer it and get it into this purple range right here. Now, the range I'm going to say for Tanganyika, when it says 9 to 9.4, okay, I've had them around 8.5 to 9.4. That's kind of the bigger range, but try to keep it closer to 9, okay? Some fish are a lot more tolerant than others, so that, it just depends what you're going to keep. A lot of the cichlids are very hardy, so, but you don't want them to get diseases over time if you keep the pH too low. When you have water quality problems, fish don't die outright. But what happens instead is they wither away, okay? And so, not a good thing. We don't want to compromise their health. We want them to thrive, right? We don't want them to survive. The whole point of this video is to get what you need to make the water chemistry, and we want it right for these fish, okay? We're just looking at this tank. It looks like my hair algae has just gone crazy. It's just off the hook. So yes, we're going to be cleaning this out today. Once a week, I harvest a whole bunch of this because, as you can see, it'll clog the power head. It will clog the filter. If you see from the side here, I've got my work cut out for me. It doesn't take me long. I just grab it and pull it all out, and then I clean out the intake tube and I clean out the power head. Maybe do a little scrubbing on the algae, on the glass. And then I'm good to go, okay? And so, so here you go. If you want to do keep African cichlids, okay, my recommendation is definitely go ahead and get the cichlid salt, okay? You're going to definitely be using this every water change. Now remember, you only add the salt when you do a partial water change from the bottom of the tank. You get your siphon hose out and your bucket, and you do whatever it is you're going to do, 10%, 25%, 50%, whatever water change you do, you're going to replace the salt, okay? But you're not going to put this in when you top off the water due to evaporation. So the water is evaporating. You're just going to, okay, when you add water, you're not going to add the salt to it. But you will be adding the buffer, okay? So you're going to add this at water changes, and you're also going to add this during evaporation because we're trying to keep the pH high at all times, okay? So there's a key hint right there, is you're going to add this to the water anytime you top off or replace, okay? And yes, get the Malawi buffer, okay? Even though your water might be at 8.0, like mine is here where I live, I would still go ahead and get the buffer. And if you can keep it a little bit higher, like 8.2 towards the 8.5, I think you're going to find that your fishes are going to do better. Their color is going to look better. And, they're just going to overall do better. Okay. One last thing. Do you have to be checking your water constantly? No, you don't. If you're using these correctly, and they do have the directions on them. Okay. If you use them correctly during your water changes, then, your water is going to be where it needs to be. You can check it periodically just to make sure that that is the case, right? Nothing wrong with that, but you don't have to be constantly checking your water every day to go, geez, is the pH right? Is the degrees of hardness right? That's the great thing about these products is that when you dose them correctly, your water is going to be perfect at all times. Now we're talking water chemistry here. Okay, so we're talking about pH, whether it's an acid or a base, okay? And we're talking about degrees of hardness, or DH value, which is also known as the amount of dissolved salt. Okay, so you got DH and pH. That's the easiest way to remember it. Okay, all right, so that's all you need to care for these fish. So not a lot of extra money to get the fish that you want. All right, folks, hope you liked the episode. If you did, give us a like, help build the channel, subscribe, and we will see you in the next video or the next short. All right, have a good day, everybody. Thanks.